Hey friends, welcome to Kainos and the New Energy Era YouTube page. This is a special video and it's not for everybody. This video is for those of you, per request, those of you in the collective of sovereign beings who watch this YouTube channel. This is for those whose Kundalini is already active. Ascended Master Almoria and myself, we do not feel, Moria feels very strongly about this, that Kundalini awakening is something that should be forced. You shouldn't, he's like, people should not be teaching it to people who are just piling them in a yoga studio, huffing and puffing and all this stuff. When it's time, it will naturally occur. So this video is for people where their Kundalini has already naturally awoken, most likely years and years and years ago. We're going to talk what happens years in, right? And we're also going to talk about how it affects your sexuality and how you actually have sex with yourself and with others. So this is not for children. This is for an adult audience. A lot of this stuff is really advanced, and the more advanced things are, the more people get triggered, right? So if you want to dump, go somewhere else, or dump and, you know, do it in the comments so it boosts our video. Every time someone is ugly in the comments, we get more subscribers. It boosts it in the algorithm. You gotta laugh. What a strange, strange world we live in. All right, so my personal history with Kundalini, right, is I went through a spontaneous, I had the tremors my whole life, but the full-blown explosion of a naturally occurring Kundalini awakening, and an awakening is just the beginning. A full-blown explosion is just the beginning. The full-blown explosion happened to me in 2013. So I guess I'm about 13 years in here, 12 and a half. So I speak from personal experience. I speak from Almoria's. He comes from Kashmir Shaivism. How he taught me is through his lineage there. But also Kundalini exists in all religions. Yeshua taught his disciples privately, not in his public talks, how to utilize Kundalini. And that is how he was able to perform all of those miracles, especially the crucifixion to the resurrection. I did find this book. It's called Kundalini, the Sacred Fire of All Religions. And this person does a pretty good job, right? I haven't read the whole thing. I've just kind of looked through it. This person does a good job of showing that Kundalini exists in all religions. It's not just Eastern concept. I love that. Like, he even got like the, I've never seen anybody write this, right? Because I had a lifetime with Yeshua. I was his daughter in a lifetime. I remember all my lifetimes. That happened when I had the Kundalini awakening. Prior to the Kundalini full-blown explosion, I did not remember my lifetimes, not a lot of them. I had a few memories pop up here and there, but I didn't have a full-blown understanding of my personal divine blueprint, my subjective, I am subjective blueprint of every single lifetime. I've had 2,149 lifetimes on earth. My most impactful life that I ever had, I was the daughter of Yeshua. Someone was in the YouTube comments today saying, yeah, when someone's just met Jesus and just had their awakening, they do X, Y, and Z, and they were talking about me. And you know, you can't explain yourself to someone like that. I just said, oh yeah, I responded, oh yeah, I met Yeshua yesterday. This is a strange world. People are so in the local linear, stuck in the cave of the local linear mind, they can't fathom that you've had a million lifetimes and you're teaching from a million lifetimes. Like, it's just, you know? And once you know all of this and you're really in tune with all of it, it's impossible for you to be aggressive in a local linear way. Like, to me, there's nothing more childish than aggression from the local linear identity. There's nothing more ridiculous or embarrassing than aggression from a local linear identity. So Kundalini will wipe out your identity completely. I have a few more book recommendations, but that's one. But oh yeah, I was going somewhere with that. Let me get there. Yeah, I mean, this person even got it in the Hail Mary prayer. Pray for us sinners now at the hour of our death. The author writes, this does not refer to the death of the physical body, but of the ego. Wow. The Divine Mother Kundalini is a true mother, a mother in the fullest sense of the word, our authentic eternal mother. Yeah. So at its core, there's a serpent that's asleep, curled at the base of the spine. Shiva is consciousness as a noun. Shiva is consciousness as a noun associated with masculinity, right? When Shiva initiates Shakti, the snake uncoils and opens her eyes. Spanda, spanda. So when Shakti is awakened through the activation of Shiva, it becomes, once that snake uncoils, it becomes a lifelong journey, expression, story, experience. There's many chapters, right? In every lifetime, I've had a Kundalini, fully active Kundalini expression experience, which is almost all of them after the fall of Atlantis, because that's how it undoes. So everybody is in a standard biological form. I talk about Atlantis so much because the form you're in now, today, was man-made, created by Atlanteans. These Atlanteans, the ones that held the most power, created this standardized biological body that you're in today. If you do not know your history, you are doomed to repeat it. That's why Katumi's so crazy about the AI stuff. He's like, the people who are pushing it don't know the history of the creation of mass consciousness, of the creation of this biology. Therefore, they are doomed to repeat it. You do not know the history of how you got this biological body and what created the reality that we live in that's not so nice some of the time. You're doomed to repeat it. Anyhow, Kundalini awakening allows you to really understand who you are without having to leave physical form, right? Most people don't realize who they truly are until they die, leave the physical form. Then they realize, oh my God, even without this standardized mind and standardized biology, I still exist in a subjective way, right? You don't go back to oneness, we are all one, kumbaya. You realize upon leaving the physical form, that in the transmigration from one lifetime to the next, that you still exist as a subjective being, meaning you have your own experiences, your own expressions that are uniquely yours, right? Inadmittable, cannot be copied. Subjectivity is key. Kundalini allows you to have that transmigration of awareness, that you are not your mind, that you are not your body, and that you exist as a subjective oneness beyond this while staying in physical form, while staying in physical form. So there's an initiation from Shiva that initiates Shakti. The snake opens her eyes, right? That begins your Kundalini journey, for lack of a better term, but it's with you your whole life, After your Kundalini, after the snake opens her eyes, right? And it's represented, Shakti is represented as a feminine consciousness, as a verb in both men and women, or in any way that you identify. This is not only for straight people, this happens for anybody and everybody, and it's going to happen in your own unique way. Another disclaimer is I am an extremely feminine being. So I'm going to share my experiences. They may be different from somewhere else. I did not study a bunch of texts. I know all this from all of my lifetimes and from my work with Ascended Master El Morya. I was not trained by books. I was not trained by a guru in a physical form. I was with a partner who reminded me, a partner without a body, who reminded me of who I am and what I was here to do. And kind of just gave me a little nudge, and then off it went, right? So when in Morya's lifetime is Abraham, I was there. I was his wife, right? He went through a Kundalini awakening. That is how he brought in all the parts and pieces of this cosmic play that he brought in that lifetime. There was an event that initiated the serpent, that is Shakti, opening her eyes and moving her way all the way up into the cosmic consciousness level, right? And his lifetime, so that Moses had a Kundalini awakening. I was there. I witnessed it, you know? And in all the lifetimes we've had together, we both did that. So that's a lot of story. So basic level, right? If you want some really basic points, once Kundalini awakens, it's a lifelong expression. There's not a finish line. It's always moving, shifting, and changing. Number one. Number two, after Kundalini awakening, life becomes a labyrinth, not a maze, right? And it does that by destroying, deconstructing who you think you are, your identity. So the human identity, through this Atlantean design standardized mind, brain mechanism, brain being physical, mind being not physical, subtle body, mind is a subtle body, right? After Kundalini, life is a labyrinth, not a maze. But the local linear mind sees itself as an individualized being, right? Lauren, I'm Lauren and I know who I am. That's what identity often says. I know who I am. I know who I am. Anything like really aggressive is identity. I'm sorry. Every time someone tells me, I know who I am, I cannot keep a straight face, because I wake up 9 times out of 10 going, I have no idea who I am. Kundalini's going to show me though. No fucking clue who I am from moment to moment, you know? Anything that's like a firm, fixed identity, I'm sorry. I shouldn't laugh. Bless your heart, little identity. Anyhow, identity is always in a maze. It's trying to navigate a maze with dead ends, and it's living in a maze. Imagine what a rat in a maze looks like. That's identity. Way to go, Atlanteans. All right. But once Shakti the snake opens her eyes, you are moving through life like it's a labyrinth, right? On your divine journey of this very special lifetime. Everything is a navigation, not a negotiation. The rat in the maze negotiates. The snake that opens her eyes and uncoils is navigating a labyrinth, a divine will labyrinth. So the way I experience it, I really have an intense experience with actual physical snakes. When this was happening, snakes were everywhere physically in my life. I mean, no matter where I went, there was a snake. I was still married at the time when my Kundalini was trying to activate. Kundalini eventually grabbed me by my ear and said, we ain't staying here. We're not staying here. I'm going to talk about that. You veer too off your path, that snake, Shakti, the divine mother will grab you by your ear, pull you back into the divine will trajectory. I mean, my poor ex-husband, he would open the door, there'd be a snake on the front porch, like a massive black snake on the front porch in the middle of a city. He was barbecuing one day and a snake fell out of the tree on his head. No matter what. And anytime I've gone through a big shift in my life, a snake always crosses my path. You know, when I lived in Mexico, it would be like an 8-foot boa constrictor would go across my path. I'd be like, oh, here she comes. Here she comes, right? But once the snake enters your life, you start to feel it. One of the key things is you start to have these spontaneous movements. That's how it started for me. My spine would just start, and I knew nothing about any of this. I didn't know what an ascended master was. I just thought I was a little bit of an odd human going through human life, you know. I stayed asleep as long as I could, but when this started to happen, I always meditated a lot since I was little. I just knew how. And I spent a lot of time alone because my parents were batshit crazy. I was an only child, and I didn't really enjoy being friends with little kid humans because I never experienced myself as a little kid human, so I don't know what that. I just spent a lot of time alone. But sitting in meditation, about 2006 it started, I just started to feel these little, they're called samaveshas, kriyas, involuntary movements. I just call them the shakes because as I said, I did not train in a library with a guru or whatever. This is all just natural for me. It's in my DNA, right? So, and I created a shell body. I did not go into a womb. I came into my body at 4 years old. There was a shell body. I went into it at 4. But I always knew that it was just one lifetime. Even at 4 years old, it was like, oh, I'm in another life. Oh shit, here I am. And these people around me are totally in the delusion of Maya. Wow, okay, what am I supposed to do with that? From that point of 4 years old, Shakti, Kundalini, consciousness as a verb, has been directing me in my life into various scenarios, places, for a very specific purpose, right? And here we end up on a weird ass YouTube page. I mean, it's just incredible. The daughter of Yeshua was sitting here on a YouTube page, people lecturing her on what newly awakened Christians are. I'm sorry, guys. The cosmic joke. Some days I just can't. I know that my job is to pretend like I'm a human and like get down and dirty, you know, into the human experience. Like that's my job. But some days I just can't play that game. I just can't do it. All right. So the snake, right? You have these involuntary movements that start, Samavesha Kriyas, right? When it started happening for me, anything that was not in alignment, the snake would pull me out of it. And I always knew that things were about to really change when a snake would cross my path. But this is an ongoing process. Like 2 months ago, I was just doing my regular yoga practice, and I'm not dogmatic about anything. I just move to the rhythm, to the pulse of my own I am consciousness. And the shake came in, and in my third eye image, I saw the snake standing up, hood out. And I said, "Oh, you're back." And she said, "Oh yeah, we're going a different direction." Okay. The other morning I woke up and I said, "Gosh, I don't know who I am anymore." And every time I have that, "Gosh, I don't know who I am anymore," because we're constant, the snake is always shedding its skin, right? So the skin comes off and all the skin is shed, and then you're in a new skin, right? And you don't know what this new skin is going to be like, right? So the snake came up like 2 months ago, as it does. Year 13. I'm used to it. There she is. I see it in my mind's eye, my third eye. She was green this time, right? Here we go again. Okay, right? Then it's in the process. The identity's in the process of shedding its skin again. And I woke up 2 days ago, 3 days ago, I don't remember, I don't know time. And I just get worse and worse at pretending I'm human and I understand time and space and local linear mind stuff. I just get worse and worse at it. I know that I'm supposed to go down there, but I just can't right now. So we're in the advanced Kundalini materials. I said, I don't know who I am anymore. And the snake says, we're creating something new. We don't even know what it looks like yet. Right? That's how fluid and malleable the identity has to be. When I first started, and it would be so dramatic, and identity would come crashing down. I was a lobbyist and a wife when my Kundalini activated, and one day I went to work and I just quit. The snake, Shakti, said, "No, we don't work here anymore. We're not a lobbyist anymore." Then the snake went home. Then we went home and told the husband, "We're not married to you anymore. This is weird, right? No." And then we moved into, it becomes a we. You have a lifelong relationship with Shakti, consciousness as a verb. The venerated Shakti opens her eyes. Yes, she does. But she doesn't just open her eyes once. She goes to sleep. She wakes back up. She goes to sleep. She wakes back up. You become fluid and malleable. Katumi talked about this a lot as the we-go. Instead of the ego, I know who I am. Instead of that, I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh. So rude of me. Oh, I know who I am, right? That ego becomes the we-go. I don't know who I am, but I'm sure a new personality will pop up that'll get the job done any day now. Right? The version of yourself you were. Jed McKenna writes about this so well, right? If you don't wake up every morning realizing that the version of yourself that you were yesterday was a raging idiot, what are you even doing? What are you even doing? So Kundalini will facilitate it and make it impossible for you to have a firm, fixed identity. Who knows who it is? But it's really overwhelming at some point. And I found this. Now, I have not read the whole thing. This is something that Yogananda wanted me to put down every single little bit that happened in Kundalini into a textbook. And I don't have the concentration bandwidth with my learning disabilities and everything that I'm doing to do that. The business partner that came in was going to help me do that. I need help. I am Shakti without a Shiva, but I did find this. And now this doesn't match my experience exactly. I would never say I don't agree or disagree with something. This doesn't match my experience exactly, but it was written by a man who has a 17-year Kundalini transformation journey. And it's like a whole textbook. Serpent Rising. Nevin Parr, P-A-A-R, and it's Winged Shoe Publishing. Yeah, Winged Shoe Publishing. It's in Ontario. But he's got, I mean, this is like a huge work of art, and it does not appear to have been created with AI, right? With all those weird little bullet points, and it's like kind of skims the surface, but it's not really great. So there's this. I just try to show you what's out there. Sometimes I recommend books. You guys go buy them and then you like make it dogma. And some people even like get involved with the authors of the books. I'm just showing you what's out there. This is another one that is kind of the classic Kundalini energy of the depths. I'll say this, before I went through the Kundalini awakening, none of this would make sense to me. But after, it made tons of sense. The wheel of reabsorption, particular to the universal subject, everything once again becomes interiorized. The flow of sublimated objective energy courses harmoniously, and the subject enjoys the universe with discrimination, just as the swan skillfully extracts from the cosmic waters the sap of consciousness. That makes perfect sense to me. Your Kundalini is not active, it's not going to make any sense. So those are some of the things I found. I also wrote about, like really basic, wrote about my Kundalini awakening in my book, A Modern Self-Realization Story. The chapter's called The Serpent Years. The Serpent Years. Oh, da da da. The Serpent Years. 155. I know who I am. And I really write about it. All these people write about it like they figured everything out. I wrote this book like I hadn't figured everything out. I wrote this book like a child would. Like, what is this? Curiosity. What am I experiencing? At the time, I had no idea what it meant or what the feeling was, and I was too exhausted from trying to take care of my father, be somewhat of a good employee, and fulfill the bare minimum of my wifely duties to figure out what was happening to me. The intense electric pulse would come and go over the coming months and years as I watched my human life unravel. Right? I'm reading that so you can see how I interact in the world, how I interact with you. I come at it from direct, sorry about that, my table is unstable. I come at everything from the innocence of a curious child, having not read any books, having not trying to be super intellectual. What does this look like for the human experience expression? That's how I approach everything. So I'm going to tell you about Kundalini and sex and how it has changed for me. I've been wanting to talk about it for a while, but people get so perverted and so weird because of the Atlantean designed sexual organs and what happened in the civilizations following it, right? I would never go to like a tantric event because it's like where predators love to hang out. I used to have a neighbor who was a tantric specialist and, you know, worked with women to like activate sexually in them. And he was one of the biggest creeps I've ever met in my entire life. It's like a fucking breeding ground. I don't know what people do if they don't have a Moria hanging out. Like, so I'm just going to give you my personal experience. All right, so before the full-blown Kundalini awakening, I started to feel contractions in my womb. I can only tell you what it's like as a woman, right? I don't know what it's like for a man. I can only tell you from direct experience because I'm not a scholar. I was born naturally talented. I didn't need to make it all mental, right? So I had started to have contractions like I was having a baby, but I wasn't pregnant. I actually cannot conceive a child with a human. I could with another being like myself, but it's like two different species. So I started to experience these contractions. And once that buildup happened, it was like earthquakes happening inside my body, in my life. And that was Shiva saying, Shakti, it's time to wake up. It's time to wake up. It's time to wake up. This is often happens through a traumatic event in people's lives. My father was dying, and then bam, 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 everything kind of went. Anything that was a lie had to go, which turns out was my whole entire life and identity. For someone like me, you go, oh, I was not my job. This wife thing was weird with a human being. I'm not a human being like that. You know, my dad died, it sucked, it was sad. We didn't have a great relationship, but the last couple of years he was alive, we really made peace. There was a lot of healing that happened. And it was actually really beautiful. So when I lost him, it was intense. But all those things are knocking Shakti loose. So I was a very sexually open person. And after my divorce and all this Kundalini energy flowing, I was very much wanting partners, multiple partners. I could get away with it for a little bit, but then it started to be really weird. Like, because it creates a situation in which you feel very active. Kundalini creates a situation which makes you feel very turned on, right? But the way that human beings have sex as a way to power and control, the way humans have sex with the finishing, I'm trying the most delicate way to say all this stuff. That's not how beings like Moria and myself interact in an intimate way. They don't go for in fact, it's considered really rude, right? So most people are just swapping spit, right? Or they're mimicking what they saw on their computer screens because they're addicted to the computer screen stuff. And they just try to act that out on other human beings as a form of dominance or control. It's, to me, what most humans consider intimacy. Intimacy is like watching animals on the farm or the ranch that I grew up on, right? So it activates this extreme desire for intimacy, right? When your Kundalini activates, yet there's not a whole lot out there. Ways to kind of, and if it gets stuck somewhere, this Shakti movement gets stuck somewhere, right? It's got to work itself out. So it can work itself out through sexual energy movement, like in a dignified, divine way. That, for most people, that is self-touch. Finding someone who is in the purity and the full-blown Kundalini activation that would be an appropriate partner is quite difficult. I've had one years ago, not anything recent. So you can move it through, and this is what Yeshua taught his disciples, he taught me. You can move it through self-touch, or you don't even have to, you can move energy orgasmically without touching yourself. or you allow the Samavesha Kriyas. To me, these are the safer ways, because safer being you don't expose because when you have very active Kundalini and you swap spit with someone, you're psychically entangled with that person and everybody they've been with for the last like 3 months. So when your Kundalini is fully active, you have the ability to clear karma for other people. Everybody who's intimate with me in my life, I'm talking about friendships and otherwise, I hold like an umbrella of protection over everybody in my life. I can process somebody's karma for them by just tweaking a little thing in their divine blueprint. I have realized that to get into my umbrella space, right, I have to be very, very selective. And then it's so mixing my energy with somebody in an intimate way, you're taking on the karma of that person with a full-blown Kundalini flow and anybody they're messing with sexually, right? You're not worried about an STD or an STI. You're worried about having to process the karma of the person you're with and everybody they've touched in that way, right? So finding a partner who understands this, who's experiencing Kundalini in the way you are, is quite rare. The only reason I know the difference is because I've had so many lifetimes with a partner who did have a full Kundalini expression. Children that are conceived when two people are fully expressed are going to be quite different than those who are, and there's nothing wrong with this, I'm not judging anybody, right? Than two people who got it on like animals and the seed met the egg, right? Like cows on the ranch. That's not to say that child is not going to be a star seed or something like that. I'm just saying it's like a whole different species. I mean, Katumi would always warn me, people are gonna start smelling bad because you're in a body that doesn't have decaying cells anymore. And so the humans around you will be in a body that decays, ages, and will eventually fall apart. And they'll start to smell bad to you. And you're not judging that person. You're not, like, ooh, that's gross. But that means you're not gonna want to get declothed with them. I'm trying not to upset anybody, use any words that will upset the YouTube, right? But everything will start to change. You allow your Kundalini to activate, a lot of the women who are married that we work with just don't want to do that act anymore. And that's normal and natural, and most of their partners are okay with it, right? But the best way to keep Shakti flowing without, and she's clearing out everything that's not in alignment. I mean, at one point during my Kundalini, like in 2014, right? Like a year in, I was fighting it. I was like, no, I want a normal life. I want a boyfriend. I was going out and getting drunk and hooking up and all those things. And all of a sudden, my body was no longer looking like this. I was like bloated up. I'd eat one blueberry and I'd swell up, right? And it's like, Shakti will stop you if you get too far off the path. So eventually, Shakti made me so physically miserable that I stopped going out getting drunk and hooking up with whomever, right? Because I was tired of fighting her, right? So at some point, you just surrender, right? And it's a continuous surrender. So that was 2014. Now Shakti shows up. She's like, we're going a different direction. I'm just like, yep, I'm along for the ride. I am along for the ride, right? And these moments come up when old identity sheds off, and this is happening all the time. It's a constant renewal. You know, if you've been with me for the last 10 years I've been teaching, you have seen me change identity and shed my skin and have the new skin a million times. You've seen me alchemize all the shit that's piled up. This is all Shakti. Kundalini is just Shakti, consciousness as a verb, right? So instead of fighting her, like, no way, my human's in charge. I'm gonna go out and hook up and do this and do that and fight you tooth and nail, right? It's like, I'll wake up, oh shit, I don't even know who I am. What's my name on my driver's license? Let me check it, right? I was driving when in July when I was going through this big thing. It's like, I know I'm not in the, I had a moment where I'm like, I know I'm not in the right spot, and I know I'm not, the inner circle I'm in is not the right inner circle. And as I was having this realization, I was walking a trail and a snake went across, right? And it was like, oh, she's back. Snake went across my path on the trail. This guy next to me jumped up in the air like 20 feet, and he was like, aren't you scared? I'm like, no, I brought it. So I got in the car and I was driving, and I had to pull over because I was like, I don't know my name. I don't know what city I'm in. I don't know what year it is, right? But I'm so used to this. I'm so calm. I just pulled the car over. And I said, okay, it's all going to come back to me. It's all going to come back to me, right? And then from that point, then I watched the bam, bam, bam. So I'll have a moment where it's like, I don't know who I am. The snake will cross my path. I kind of have a sense that I'm not going down the right path, right? I veered too much from the alignment, right? And then I go, oh shit, I'm going to watch everything crumble. It's happened so many times. I just sit back, get your popcorn, get your peanuts, right? Bam, 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 bam. This person's out. This is falling apart. This is that. So I can rebuild. You know, after all that, I popped up here in August. It's like, oh, the Age of Aquarius is here. I need a new identity to bring you the Age of Aquarius materials. All right, Shakti made a new identity to bring you the Age of Aquarius materials. Here I am. Oh yeah, it's linear year 2026. Oh yeah, my passport says my name is Lauren. I know who I am. Right? And so the identity thing will really shift and change. The sex part will really shift and change. It's not that you don't want to have sex. It's just that for the most part, you're not going to want to have sex with someone who's a different species, right? It's like mixing with someone who's like not human, right? Because it's really unnatural, right? So you can move this Shakti through the Samavesha Kriyas. Also, like when you meditate, the level of satisfaction you're receiving in your meditation is going to be better than the rabbit interactions of human sexuality. It's bizarre and animalistic, and you won't be attracted to it anymore at all, right? And the satisfaction you get from self-love, from your meditations, from being in samadhi, the cosmic consciousness, where your eyes are rolling in the back of your head while you're meditating without having to mix your energy with another species, will be more in alignment. And I mean, if you're able to sit Indian style on your yoga mat and go into full samadhi, you won't want to go to a bar. Do you see what I'm saying? But self-touch is one of the best ways to, and if you can find a partner like Yeshua had with Mary Magdalene, or Yeshua had when he was in India with the person who taught him all of this, right? Or the lifetimes I've had where Moria and I incarnated together, that is a whole different thing. Two beings with extremely activated, all the way activated Kundalini is something entirely different. You become a different species when this activates. What else do I want? Oh, this is also, well, you'll start to see the whole divine blueprint of who you are and all of those, all the different lifetimes that you've had, right? And Shakti will infuse itself into the whole electromagnetic grid that is your divine blueprint, which creates the new energy experience, right? Your divine blueprint is the electromagnetic grids of all your lifetimes that are happening simultaneously. But when Shiva, this also goes into our donor video stuff. So when Shakti is dormant, the snake is still coiled, her eyes are still closed, right? The divine blueprint is just the electromagnetic grids of energy. Shakti, the venerated Shakti, opens her eyes. It infuses plasma into the electromagnetic grids of your divine blueprint. Then you begin to operate on a cosmic level. The actions you take in life or are cosmic triggers for bringing in the Age of Aquarius, rather than your human actions being in the law of cause and effect. I don't work out, therefore my body's unhealthy. I'm looking for a partner to save me and there's no one coming, right? It's like you're living in that cause and effect thing, right? This is beyond karma. Everything is an internal navigation, a kriya. You work it out inside by going through the plasma, infusing into the divine blueprint. You're not just remembering human lifetimes, you're remembering cosmic ones. The other morning I woke up in between sleep and awake, and I was back in the Star Wars fighting. You know, we had no bodies, we had no human mind, we had the subjectivity of consciousness. And I was fully back in the Star Wars, no body, no story, but fighting off the energy stealing that was going on from day one of leaving oneness. That was happening in my divine blueprint, and I could feel it happening inside of me. It's so satisfying, but it will make you feel like if you're just at the beginning and you're just opening up to the cosmic level view, and all of a sudden humans start to smell bad to you and you realize you're not the same species, you're Homo luminous, not a Homo sapien, nor do you want to mix your energy with a Homo sapien because you're Homo luminous, right? It'll start, and like all these memories, imprints, samskaras, points on your divine blueprint will be lit up, and your mind's going from the local linear tiny little honeycomb that you've been stuck in, the prison of identity you've been stuck in, into this whole thing. It'll make you feel like you're going crazy. For Katumi, it happened all at once, and he was in a hospital deemed insane for 2 years until he kind of got his shit together. Mine has gradually opened up. There have been several points where I was walking around like a mad woman in the mountains with my dog at the time, Ollie, just, you know, just walking, wearing my pajamas and not able to function in the world. But I know that I know, I am that I am. And then I was able to I just trust, right? If you go too far down the human free will path and your Kundalini is active, Shakti will pull you back. You don't have the luxury of bucking your responsibility. You don't have the luxury of just checking out whenever you feel like it. You don't have the luxury of being able to go out, get drunk, and hook up because there's no way. Shakti won't let you. You'll become very, very, very ill. When you're not doing the divine will, you're not on that divine will thing. Shakti will make you sick until you're back in alignment with your divine will, right? So my goal for myself is to come up with some sort of program for those of you who have this naturally occurring Kundalini awakening, to connect with each other. There's several of you who email me. I don't even want to say your names because it's so private and personal. What I'm thinking is that when we get back from the European tour, I'm going to create like 3 or 4 person private calls, a way for you guys to sit and share your Kundalini experiences and get feedback starting in June. Like 3 to 4 people per call. Maybe there's just 3 call options. So like 12 people total. Kind of like we did Conversations Create, but only for people who are in the full-blown Kundalini expression experience. Because this is really not something I'm going to keep talking about publicly on YouTube. Moria is not a fan, but he said, hey, Sarah, just go out and find them, right? Go out and find those who are going through this, and we'll teach it on the back end, right? And then the front end will be all of the super palatable singular communications network, sentience, you know, all the St. G Tobias stuff, right? And the back end will be the Kundalini crowd. Also, so Katumi and I will be teaching the light body experience expression in Munich, Germany on May 9th. If you are knee deep in your Kundalini experience, we'll cover that. If you're doing the singular, just the pranic flow rather than the Shakti flow, it's 2 very, very different things. That will be a personalized experience. So we'll be able, and Kundalini is something that Katumi knows fully, inside and out. He's kind of the bridge between the 2. He's like, we can do both, right? These light body codes and the Kundalini. He's kind of in between. Moria's all about the Kundalini. St. G's all about just the pranic flow singular communications network, right? So if you come to Germany, we'll do all that. But Miss Irina is found us a location in Portugal that is very nice. She's gonna go take a look at it, but I talked to Keiko. We're still figuring out dates, but after the European tour, I'm gonna need a couple months to put myself back together after I go do those 3 events. I'm giving you my full expression in those 3 events. After I give you my full expression, I collapse, right? Meeting me in person is really intense, and I'm able to fill in the holes you need in person in ways that I can't do online. But after that, I need to lay in bed for a month or 2. I do it out of service. I do it also because I enjoy it. I enjoy seeing the results and people thriving. Being in my presence is an honor and a privilege. I don't care what that sounds like to your limited ego who likes to get angry and aggressive. It's who I am. I'm not going to pretend to be something I'm not anymore. Hang out with me for 20 minutes. See what happens. Total beauty if you allow it. It's an honor and a privilege to be in my presence. I have the amount of love flowing through me that Anandamaya Ma had at that level. I'm not going to pretend to be a tiny little meek human anymore. It's not what meek actually meant anyway. It meant strength when needed. But after I recover from that, Irina is going to help host an event in Portugal that will be just for the Kundalini folks. That's what it's feeling like right now. So, trigger alert. Sorry if your life falls apart. It's worth it. It's worth it. Sorry if humans start to smell bad and you don't want to make love like an animal anymore. You know, I've had one partner in this life that could even get close to really being able to hold the space for that kind of intimacy. I'm not even talking about commitment. I'm talking about intimacy, but intimacy that's so intimate that it often ends up in a commitment. But commitment, like forced commitment, is not like the thing. But when two beings with extremely active Kundalini and purity of heart and purity of intention, who aren't playing power games or in a conquest, right, to dominate one another or play games with one another, there is no experience better on earth. And it's so sad to me how many people don't get to experience that. You can have that with yourself, though. Whether it's self-love, self-touch, or learning how to enter samadhi in all its various forms on your own. It's the closest thing you'll get to that. But to me, the saddest part of humanity is not knowing what this biological body is capable of and the states of ecstasy that it can reach when two people are in that space. To me, that is the saddest thing to watch on planet Earth, right? Sexuality has gotten so perverted, and my lifetime with Yeshua, my lifetimes with Moria, this was a beautiful and natural thing that we all participated in. What passes for sexual relations on Earth today is what has made me be celibate off and on for very large chunks of time, 4 years, a year. But as soon as people start trying to teach this, it gets so perverted because duality just flips it on its head. If you go to one of these workshops, they're all into like ethical non-monogamy, and they're all like in this like weird psychic energy. You got to worry about STIs, but mainly you got to worry about sexually transmitted demons, right? And they're all just mixing their energy, and it's a great place for predators, male and female, to get their kicks. Like, there's still so many power games. True sexuality is pure. There are no power games, and it was designed as a way to experience yourself as God also, with another God also. But if there's anything I've been learning in the last couple of months, is there's so few people that have the purity of heart, that have this cosmic love flowing through them at all times to even be a suitable partner. So that was one of the most frustrating things as I came into my Kundalini awakening and the full-blown expression and all the various iterations I've been in. It's like, it just pushed me more and more into developing my own samadhi, right? It's like, it's Moria putting his hand on my back saying, if it's not love, it's a lie. If this intimate interaction doesn't feel like what we had in our lifetimes together, it's animals making it in the ditch. Right? Sex is not gross. The way people have it on Earth these days is, right? So it's really protecting yourself as your Kundalini awakening, especially as a young woman or man. I'm sure it's the same for men. There's predators out there for you guys too, right? But when you have this Shakti awakening, right? You will become extremely, it'll change your whole body structure. It'll change your bone structure. If you've known me a while, my jawline has changed. My body has changed. My eyes have exponentially changed, right? It makes you more attracted to the opposite sex or same sex if that's your thing. It magnetizes people towards you, but you have to be very, very cautious. And I've learned this the hard way. Like, really learn this the hard way. Don't be sucked in by the flattery and whatever else. And like, Shakti's flowing, so you're like, flatter me, you know, right? But I realize, like, it is not worth the cost of having to process that person's karma, their psychic ties to others, especially if they're lying to you. Like, you really need to, I mean, it sounds so like Christian puritanical, protect your flower, protect your goodness. But it's not coming from a place of like repression, right? I am a fully sexual being. I do not repress my sexuality. I just am very diligent about who it gets shared with. And when you make a mistake on that, you pay for it dearly. It takes a lot of effort to clean that up. So learn from me. Learn from me, please. So this is not something I'm going to keep talking about on a public YouTube page, but starting in June, I'll create some of these calls. I'll make the cost totally reasonable of like 3 to 4 people coming on in a safe space, in a private space, to talk about what this lifelong expression of Shakti is, what it looks like from a person, from a being, from a consciousness who's had this experience, expression in many, 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 many lifetimes. One of my best lifetimes, I was actually conceived. I didn't have to come into a shell body. I was actually conceived through 2 beings with active Kundalini making love in full expression, experience, intimacy. And that lifetime, I came out so clean and so pure through, I was able to stay in the body while in the womb of my mother in that lifetime. Came out of the womb with my eyes open in a loving environment. It was such a wonderful lifetime. If more people knew this, I mean, the kids are all right. I was just out in the city interacting. I talked to so many little kids today. The kids are all right, right? But think about what the earth would look like if more kids were born through this. 2 homoluminous beings have a homoluminous child, right? Something totally different happens in Shambhala the Kingdom, but we'll talk about that later. All right, I introduced what I could. I got out what I could. And there's so much more to tell you, but I can't keep putting this on I'm already risking too much putting this on a public YouTube channel because you know the crepes are about to come out of the woodwork. All right, guys, my name is Sarah Lauren. I'm an ascended master who returned to Earth. I've got Moria in the background. All the Kundalini materials come from both of us. We just put ourselves together to bring them out. And there's so many people who weren't talking about these sexual changes and these identity changes when I was a young woman going through all of this. And I wish there was. And so hopefully I can pay it forward. All right, guys, I'll see you next time.